Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle from WeAreSC.com. We have the full group with us today, and we're going to continue with a few things we've been talking about recently, including season preview. Today is USC at Illinois, so that's the first really big game on the schedule, maybe the most pivotal game on the schedule overall, I would say. Talk a few more about a few more of these most important player lists coming up, and maybe a couple of other things. Who knows what we'll get to? You never do know. Guys, before we jump into Illinois, we talked last week quite a bit about Ethan Booby Feaster, and I think we were all pretty optimistic and conveyed that optimism about USC landing him. It, of course, was made official this past week. Feaster is committing to USC. Anything else that you think we should talk about regarding that commitment that didn't come up last week when we thought we knew but didn't know for sure?
I think just everybody maybe hoping that USC kickstarts their 2027 recruiting class with Peyton Houston. Crystal balls seem to be rolling in right now. Obviously, there's some other third attachment legs, whether you're talking about basketball or his friend who plays, I think, running back, Landon Kalale or whatever his name is. I mean, really, that's what it is. You knew Booby Feaster was coming, or at least there was a good, strong feeling about it. And now once that happened, a few days later, you've got crystal balls rolling in for what's considered one of the top quarterbacks in the 2027 cycle. So I think when you get that type of after effect, that's always a positive sign.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is a kid who has two other football players and a basketball player that all have been talking about wanting to play together at the same school. We know from years of following recruiting that it doesn't always work out that way. But especially when you're talking about a quarterback and a receiver, there is a natural connection there, and so maybe Peyton Houston is on his way, maybe he's not. Although I think Eric, at this point, it's pretty clear that he is Riley's number one guy in the next class, right?
Yeah, and that the hit rate on that is pretty good for Lincoln Riley. There's been a few things where he's had to adjust and that sort of stuff, but yeah, it was very clear. All right, he's the guy. We're going in on him, and seems like that's going to happen. I think one of the things about Feaster that maybe we didn't go into that popped up a little bit later. I saw reported from someone in Texas that had covered him a lot, just the type of person he is, right? Leader and that kind of guy that you're okay being, facing your position group offense team, that sort of thing going forward. And when you're talking about building classes and culture and all that stuff that's been so important for this USC class, adding someone that helps that, I think is big too. Just how, I mean, the talent's the talent, and he's good. But when you have that whole package, that's a nice sort of cherry on top.
Yeah, we'll know in a few years, I suppose, whether the USC coaches and staff were right, that they're not only recruiting good football players, but good kids. That seems to be something they spent a lot of time trying to figure out, and obviously it makes a big difference. But yeah, Feaster is a kid who people talk about as being a great guy. His wide receiver coach in high school, by the way, says that he plays like Mike Williams. Now, I don't look, stop. Don't tell me that a recruit is going to be Reggie Bush or Ronnie Lott or Mike Williams. Don't do it. Don't tell me that. But if he's just trying to get USC fans excited about this kid that he's been coaching, that's a pretty good way to start. Even though he's 6'1", not 6'5". I don't know. I don't understand the comparison, but I know that was thrown out there. And anytime somebody says he's going to be like Mike Williams, I say, oh, I sure hope he's half as good as Mike Williams. And two, you really know how to capture my attention. So he figured that part out.
I think it had to do with with his natural athleticism. I mean, being 6'2" is one thing, but he's got long arms, he's got long legs. He covers a lot of field with his natural ability.
Yeah, well, we'll see if he can take every bubble screen for 9 to 12 yards. And if so, then he's Mike Williams. Okay, good. Look, let's jump into the Illinois game then. We've been over the last few weeks going through a game on the schedule every week. And the games have gotten a little bit better every week. But now we're finally getting into the heart of the schedule. USC, unless something disastrous happens, should be 4-0 going into the Illinois game. Illinois, unless something disastrous happens, will be a ranked team playing at home with a whole bunch of returning starters. USC wins this one, and playoffs are a very reasonable possibility, right? They still have a long way to go, but if they win this one, you look at the schedule and you say, okay, 10-2 sounds pretty plausible, and 10-2 probably gets you in the playoff out of the Big Ten. So let's start then looking at Illinois. And you know what, Greg? I want you to go. I want to hear the ex-coach's perspective on what this game means and what USC fans should be thinking about when it comes to this Illinois matchup.
Well, I think, and we're USC people, we're looking at it with both our heart and hopefully our head. So we figured out all the reasons why USC is gonna win, in Champaign, Illinois. But I think you have to also look at Illinois' situation. They've been coming and coming and coming in terms of getting better and better and more productive. They have a lot of players coming back. They know how big a game this is. In my opinion, I think this is the biggest game of the year up to that point, of course. The bottom line is if SC goes into Illinois and wins, it opens up a lot of potential because the following week USC plays Michigan in the Coliseum. So you can see that the possibility of a win really projects them into a really unique position that if they can keep it up, good things can happen in the middle to hopefully end of the season. Now, that being said, Illinois knows it's a big game too, because they know what that could mean for them. And hopefully, you look at it and you say to yourself, well, is Illinois that good? Well, they probably are really pretty good. And this is going to be a road test. And let's remember that Lincoln Riley needs to be able to show that his teams can win on the road, which has been a challenge at USC for the most part in recent times. So I think this Illinois game, to me, is a game that has a lot on the line, because if SC loses to Illinois, then comes back and plays Michigan and is not up for the game, even in the Coliseum, it could really be, I won't say it's a disaster, but it's certainly going to put them under some very difficult circumstances trying to right the ship, in my opinion.
Yeah, critical game, no doubt. Look, Eric, Illinois has a bunch of returning starters, including a quarterback that everybody seems to like a lot. My question for you is Luke Altmaier really an elite quarterback? Or is he just a guy who was on a team that won 10 games last year and is coming back? What is your perspective? Yeah,
he's that. But you can win a lot of games being that guy, right? You can win a lot of games if you keep the football for your team, and when it leaves your hand, it gets into your teammate's hand. And you could be a good quarterback doing that. And there just are not, when you look at quarterbacks this year across the country, really, there aren't a ton where you say, man, that guy has really done it at a high level for a full year or 2 years. I mean, you look at the top lists of these, top 10 quarterbacks coming into the season and that sort of stuff. A lot of them are, I mean, there's a big chunk that are first year starters where you think, yeah, I think this guy might be okay, right? Dante Moore gets talked about a lot. Arch Manning gets talked about a lot. Like a lot of these guys that don't have a lot behind him. So he's got wins behind him, which that's not a bad thing if you're a quarterback. So playing at home against what we think is going to be a pretty good USC defense, if he's not going to turn it over, then you're going to have a challenge to go beat them. And so I think that's where some of his strength is. And USC lost to quarterbacks that were not as good as him last year. I mean, the Minnesota kid, the Maryland kid, like those quarterbacks were not as good. So that a quarterback who just plays confidently, keeps the ball, can be a challenge. So I think that's where he fits in. You don't expect to go there and, oh no, this guy's gonna throw for 350 yards and 5 touchdowns and just be like, we can't contain this guy. But you're gonna have to force him into some mistakes.
Yeah, and it appears he doesn't make a lot of them. He only threw 6 picks last year. He also only threw for 300 yards one time. And had a
250 yards one time. I mean, that, like, it's not, it wasn't even like 280. It was,
that's right.
Upper
you see a lot of 170, 160, 180 yard games on this thing. But Mark, maybe we're not being fair. Look, Lincoln Riley had no idea how to win a Big Ten road game last year, right? No idea at all. Now you're talking about a team that, whether they're the most talented team in the Big Ten or not, they won a lot of games. They have a lot of guys coming back. They have an experienced quarterback. They have a home crowd that will no doubt be going absolutely insane because they have a ranked team, which hasn't happened, I think, since Butkus was there. And because they have USC coming into town, which is always going to be fun for opposing fans in a place like that. So, Mark, you're the eternal optimist. Tell me why USC fans should have some hope when Lincoln Riley can't win a road game, and this sounds like a tough one.
Well, I don't think we have to go as far back as Dick Butkus. Juice Williams was their quarterback when they went to the Rose Bowl against USC. But
all right.
I get your point.
Hey, people don't come here for factual accuracy, Mark. Don't confuse yourself. Go ahead.
So here's the thing. Yes, they do return Luke Altmaier. He helped lead that team to 10 wins last year, but they lost their top 2 wide receivers. Those guys are gone. Illinois had to jump into the transfer portal to bring in a couple guys, someone from West Virginia, another guy from Ball State. Eric pointed out that, hey, you know what? They really don't throw the ball for a lot of yardage. So whether or not the quarterback wide receiver chemistry works together where they know where to make the break, where to find that open grass, that type of stuff, we'll see if they can do that 2 years in a row. Not to mention the week before USC travels to Champaign, Illinois, I believe Illinois takes on Indiana. And that could leave Illinois in a different situation. Are they still undefeated? Are they a top 10 team? Did Indiana, get that win? So that'll play a little bit of a role in what happens when USC shows up. Is Illinois riding high because they're confident they're also 4-0, or are they pissed off because they lost their first conference game to Indiana? So I guess that's something we'll have to look at as we get closer to it. The other thing, when I was checking the preview for Illinois, not a lot of confidence in their offensive line. I think I saw them rated maybe having the 12th best offensive line in the conference. So again, how much does that help them on offense? We anticipate USC's defensive line being the strength this year on defense. I guess that'll be the first test. We'll find out. Because if USC comes home 5-0, yeah, they're going to the playoffs. And we can talk about that more because you've got that next 4-game stretch that starts with Illinois, and then you have another 4-game stretch later in the season where you go to Nebraska, but you host Iowa and Northwestern, but you go to Oregon. So there's a lot in play here where USC just loses 2 games on the road but protects their home turf. Yeah, we're talking playoffs in season 4 for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting game. It's always difficult to play on the road. It's always difficult to play on the road against a team that has an experienced quarterback who isn't likely to throw the game away, and has a team that has some confidence because they're coming off a 10-win season. My problem with Illinois is, and before you start screaming at me that USC lost on the road every game last year, they don't, I already know the weaknesses with USC's team. We spend weeks talking about those. But I look at Illinois and I see a team that statistically is almost inseparable from last year's USC team. I mean, they averaged 6.5 points per game more than their opponent, essentially what USC did. They didn't run the ball particularly well. They ran for 153 yards a game on a 4.4 average. That's worse than USC. We complain about USC's run game. It's worse than USC. And USC threw for a whole lot more yards than Illinois did. Illinois defensively gave up 149 a game on 4.4 yards per carry. That's almost identical to USC. I look at it and I look at a team that was not particularly good offensively and good, but not dominant defensively. What they were really good at is they won a lot of close games. They went 5-1 in one-score games. USC, of course, was lousy in one-score games. But, you know, when you're looking at NFL previews especially, what they almost always do is they look at the teams that had a very favorable one-loss record from the year before, assume that that's not going to repeat, and then make their predictions based on that. I think with Illinois, you have to do the same thing. If Illinois plays football similar to the way they played it last year, they're not going to be a 10-win team, most likely. They'll probably be a 7 or 8-win team because that's what they were. They just happen to get the bounce of the ball 5 out of 6 times, which nobody does. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning didn't have 83% winning percentages in one-score games. It just doesn't hold up over the long term. So Illinois will be better. They have a lot of returning players. USC will be better. Illinois will likely be favored in this game and probably should, unless they get blown out by Indiana the week before. I have no problem with that. I just look at the game and I don't see an Illinois team that is likely better than USC. I don't think they are. Whether USC can figure out their road problems, can USC figure out a way not to throw a pick at the end of the game to lose it? I don't know. I don't know. None of us know that. But I look at, if all you look at is a record, you say, oh man, 10-win team playing at their place, a bunch of returners, we're in trouble. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I think USC can very easily play with Illinois, and this is a winnable game. Am I crazy, guys?
I think USC's performance at Purdue will give us an indication on how they perform at Illinois. You have to go into West Lafayette and you have to win in a dominant fashion. You can't go in there and eke out a win and play close like you did with Maryland or Minnesota or Washington. You have to go into Purdue and beat them convincingly.
Last year's Illinois team beat Purdue 50-49, by the way, at home. So I don't know that. What's that?
Overtime, right?
Yeah, 1 OT. So, but still, I mean, that means they gave up 40-something to Purdue in regulation, which takes some effort, I think. Look, I'm not trashing Illinois here. I think they're overrated in the preseason polls, and I think they're overrated because they won a lot of games last year and have a lot of guys coming back. But it was not a dominant football team last year. And if they're going to be a dominant football team this year, they have to get dramatically better. And maybe they will, right? You have guys coming back. Maybe they will get dramatically better. I think USC will be dramatically better too. So it's an interesting football game, but I think USC has a real shot at this one. And if they win it, I think it does set them up nicely.
I think it's really similar to the Michigan game last year. I think it shows you what you are as a program. Like that Michigan team last year, I know playing there is always tough. That Michigan team last year was not good. And if USC was a good team, they would have won that game, right? You can't throw that pick six, the interception that gets returned. You got to shut down some of the run game. You can't give up the big runs that they gave up. And they did, and they lost. And that's what Illinois is going to do. I know the offensive line, like the names don't jump out. It's 5 starters returning on the offensive line, which in this day in college football, I'll take it almost no matter who the 5 guys are, right? That continuity and the starts that they have there, that's going to give them a leg up playing at home. And then on the defensive side, it's tough everywhere. I mean, they bring back starters all over the place. It's a really good secondary. They've got a great linebacker. And then Gabe Akas on the edge there all last year, every single game, we were like, hey, that's the guy. That guy they can't let make a game-changing play. And he did every game, right? Going to Minnesota. Jaw Joyner, he's the only guy. 3 guys at him. Third quarter, beats his player, hits the quarterback, huge interception, right? So this is the same. You get another shot at this. Are you buttoned up in all those areas? Can you run the ball against a tough defense? Can your offensive line not get jumpy and lose their minds like you did at Michigan, where you just couldn't get anything done against what was a good rushing, pass rushing team? Illinois is going to bring some of that too. And can you play on the road as an offensive line, as a defense? Can you make those plays? I see it again. The names are different, right? Playing at Michigan is a bigger at symbol just on the schedule and when you're looking at it. Feels the same. Feels like you got to go win a Big Ten road game against a team that's not going to beat itself. You got to go get a win, and we have not seen. There's no proof where it says, oh yeah, you do what you did last year in this game. That doesn't really exist. So yeah, USC is going to have to go get it, and I don't think it's going to be easy.
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody thinks it'll be easy. And you're right. There are some comparisons with the Michigan game, although Illinois is far more balanced offensively, of course, than Michigan was. But the same problems that came up, the same problems that took down USC's season first made dramatic appearances against Michigan, right? The untimely interceptions, tackles who were completely unable to deal with an edge rusher. And that Michigan game was about as, let's be honest, that was about as bad as I've ever seen tackles play in a major college football game. I mean, that Michigan edge rusher was good, and he got drafted, playing the pros and all that. But they made him look like Lawrence Taylor, and I don't think he's Lawrence Taylor. And then you had a defense that wears down over the course of the game, and despite the fact that they were pretty good against the run and pretty disciplined most of the time, had huge breakdowns that lead to long touchdowns, including, the devastating one where you can't be ahead in a game against a team that can't throw the ball, has the ball inside their own 20, has 2 minutes to score, and let them score, right? You can't do that. Not only if you're a good team can you not do that, you can't do that if you're a below average team. So yeah, USC has to show that they're a much different football team this year than they were last year. And in their first 4 games, I think Jaden Iowa can do whatever Jaden Iowa wants, and they can probably get away with it. They will not in this game. If he is not sharp, if he does not protect the football, if he does not make plays on 3rd and 8 to keep drives going, USC's in trouble. And so this is, I think, our first opportunity to see who Jaden Iowa really is in 2025, as opposed to who he was last year or against teams like Clay Helton's team. Greg Katz? Anything else to say on this?
It's such a key game that we've already talked about so much of it. I think you hit a good point, Chris. It gets down to certain individuals, how they produce in big situations. There is no proof to me that my Ovid quarterback is the guy that's going to lead them. I think, people that get all fired up about how many yards a guy passes for. Look, SC's had quarterbacks that passed for a lot of yardage and they lost. So I don't get turned on by how many yards somebody throws. It's really about pick sixes and mistakes. And there's so much that goes into being a quarterback aside from I throw the ball to you and you catch it. Mayava in this game, to me, will confirm some gut feelings I have about him. And in fairness to him, let's see how he does in that game. It could be the biggest game of his career in terms of how he's going. I have no doubt about this, though. Lincoln Riley will change quarterbacks if things don't look like they're going the way he wants them to go. Now, the question is Longstreet an acceptable backup? And if he gets into the Illinois game for whatever reason, can he be a producer of enough things that could get the Trojans with a victory? I don't worry about how dominant USC is. I think what's more important to me is, did you win? Did you win? That's all that counts. You win by 1 point or you win by 35 points. Look, at the next game is Michigan. Michigan will be fired up. If SC does beat Illinois, just think what that means to Michigan when they come to the Coliseum. There's so much intangibles, but I still think the Illinois game is going to get down to how Mayava plays, and we'll see about that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a game that's going to be decided by turnovers probably, as close games tend to be. And I don't think anybody doubts that Maeva, as long as he's a starting quarterback, is going to throw for a lot of yards and is going to score some points. He is going to do that. He is. The question is, what's he going to do when you have to have a play and you can't afford a mistake? And we don't know that yet. We won't know it. I don't think we'll know it until Illinois, frankly. I hope we don't. I hope we don't know it until Illinois, because if we're in a dogfight with one of those other teams, we're in trouble, fellas. Okay. Anything else on Illinois before we move on? Mark Holkin, you look like you want to say something.
Not a thing.
Okay.
Not a thing.
You still look like. I guess that's just your face. Your face looks like.
I do think it helps. I do think it helps the higher they get in the rankings. I mean, that's what right. That's one of those teams where, yeah, put them up there. I hope they win every game except that one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't feel that way about a lot of the other teams on USC's schedule. They're going to start the season ranked, but Illinois, I feel pretty good about. Go ahead, do your thing as long as USC wins. I also think it puts a lot of pressure on Illinois, which is, if we're being honest, not a program that is used to playing in the spotlight, not a program that is used to trying to win a conference title. They're not. They've been pretty average for, I don't know, my lifetime. So if they beat Indiana, they're going to feel very good about themselves, but there's also going to be a tremendous amount of pressure. It's going to be the only thing people are talking about on that campus, I think, for some months. So we'll see how that plays out. Okay, so we also started last week. We've been unveiling, I think every day, or maybe whenever Eric wants to, our combined list of the most important players on the 2025 roster. We have four more to talk about today, and three of them I think we'll talk about at the same time because they all play the same position. But first up is Jide Abasiri, defensive tackle, sophomore, big kid. Got some experience last year. I think the USC coaches are expecting some stuff from him. Who wants to talk about Abasiri first? Mark, you do. I can tell by your face.
So I'm interested to see how big of that next step that Jide makes. You look at him last year, he looked like one of those first guys off the bus. He's now, as you mentioned, he's a sophomore, and that's typically where you see the biggest jump from your freshman to your second year in college. Can he take that next step? Because the name that everybody's been hearing about since spring camp at that 3 technique has been Devin Tompkins. Devin Tompkins has been around. If Jide is ready to take that next step and be that guy, man, all of a sudden that defensive line, the rotation, particularly inside, and because of the versatility of guys like Jide and Tompkins, you can play them inside, you can flip them outside if you need to on certain types of situations, but the depth, and you got Keyshawn Silver, you got Jamal Jarrett. Jide is right now, he's fighting for rotational time. I mean, he was one of USC's top recruits in the class last year. And all of a sudden now, he's got to show that, hey, there's a reason why you guys wanted me so badly. I got to take that next step. Otherwise, he's gonna fall down the depth chart, especially with a guy by the name of Jakeem Stewart kind of waiting in the wings just to get his feet wet. I'm anticipating Jide being the guy. Again, just for rotational purposes, you're giving Danton Lynn and Coach Henney and Coach Nua a big piece, and somebody from the Midwest who, should know what Big Ten football is all about.
Eric, for most of the last 5, 6, 7 years, a guy like Abasiri is somebody who you would automatically be writing in to get 50 snaps a game on USC's defensive line. He's a big kid. He has talent. He has some experience. But you look at the depth inside this year, and you say, okay. I mean, Keyshawn Silver's going to play. They didn't go pluck him away from Kentucky not to. Jakeem Stewart is going to play. Everybody is talking about Devin Tompkins being like a revelation this year. He's going to play. Jaw Jarrett is the size of 7 ordinary human beings. And if he's working hard, and it looks like he is, it's hard to imagine he's not going to play. Where does Abasiri fit into this mix in light of how many bodies they have?
You know, you don't want to talk about it, but you don't get all those guys for every game. You don't get all those guys at 100% healthy for every game, right? So you need that. You need those guys. You need those guys to step up. And there's going to be a game where, you know, your number 3 has to play 40, 50 snaps for you, and he's the healthiest and the freshest. And the fact that if he's 2 or 3 or anything but 1, that's a good spot for the USC defensive line. And I think what he does too, what having all those kind of 3 techs, and especially when you have Devin Tompkins there too, is that you can go big across the front, right? He can play defensive end for you. Avasiri comes in. Avasiri can play on the edge for you. Like you have so much that you can do in terms of size, athleticism, and all of that up front right now, that I think I don't really see one guy being, you know, oh, he you know, led the group by far in sacks and tackles and all that. I think it's spread across 6, 7, 8 guys. And when you can give a guy a breather, send someone in who's playing at that same level, that's rough on an offensive line. So the rotation along the defensive line is going to be fascinating to watch, because you could see that. I mean, that's what happened last year. Those guys played above themselves at a high level for a big chunk of the game. And then when you needed the stop, it just wore down. And so I think maybe the same way they saw it with Woody Marks at the end of the year, where, yeah, he got you through, like you relied on him really heavily. But if you needed to go further, if he's not available to you because he got hurt, then now you're trying to talk about, you know, we want to play an extra 3 games or whatever that is. So the defensive line, I think, is the same thing. And it'll be interesting to see like what that rotation looks like if they have an interior guy taking 60 snaps, you know, early in the season, or if it is far more spread out. But I still go back to when Lincoln Riley talked about him after his first spring ball as a true freshman. And it was one of those, hey, when the light goes on, there's something there. And you hear more and more about maybe he's there. So I know there's a lot of love for Devin Tompkins. Jaday's ceiling feels really high. And if he starts to push to that, I don't know how you keep him off the field, but can say that for about 15 guys on defense this year.
Yeah, Greg, this is a guy who got some time as a true freshman on a defensive line that wasn't as deep as this one. Obviously, we know there are a ton of guys there who look like they can play, and we expect will be able to play, but haven't proven it yet. We all know that. But you know, I think when Abasiri committed sort of late in the recruiting class the year before, I don't think anybody really expected him to be a guy who would come in and, you know, be in sort of that second unit. And much of the time last season he was. What did you see last season from Abasiri? And what would you expect from him this year?
Well, part of the situation is the perception of a player. You know, a lot of the players that they took this time around defensively on the line, you know, you got to almost feel as though you got to really know who they are. It was like a PR thing, and they repeated weekly. You know, they're getting this guy, they're getting that guy. I think, you know, Abasiri, I don't think he was quite should we say, pre-introduced to the establishment. I think the fact of the matter is he comes to play and he plays every down. You know, it's really about how do you produce in the game. He goes to Illinois and does something remarkable. When I say remarkable, plays at his strength and does what he can and leaves a message. Fine. You know, I think the key to him will be how does he play in the first 3 games? Okay. Does he establish something against teams that are not, at least that we think are not at this, the first three teams are not at a great level of notoriety, so to speak. If he does well there, then you sit there and say, well, let's now see how he does against Illinois. But we don't know. Uh, I find it interesting. I like players like this because it's like they have to earn more respect and more everything than maybe some other players. I think the guys on the team know what he's about. Okay. But I don't think the followers of USC football really know who he's about. They're hearing his name a lot more now, and it'll be interesting. I think it's really going to be how much he can produce in the time that he gets there and how he produces, what mistakes does he make. And you know, brain power can take you a long way in athletics if you don't have quite all the physical skills of a future NFL player. And it'll be interesting to watch him. I think he is like some other players on the team that I think that, if given the opportunity, can come through because they just want it that bad to come through.
Yeah, this defensive line is full of guys like this who have the measurables and who the coaches are high on, who still have to go out and prove it. I think most of us feel pretty good about the defensive line because of the number of bodies. You figure some of them are going to pan out, and because of the coaching, right? I mean, the coaches last year took some interior defensive line guys that I didn't think had any business wearing a USC uniform, and actually got those guys playing pretty well. There were some breakdowns, there were some wear downs at the end of the game, but guys who were not highly regarded were playing at a pretty high level. And now you're talking about a group of guys that are legitimately more talented, and you have a lot of them. So I think we feel good about it. I think I'm a series of guy who's going to be in the mix and will probably play well, but he's part of a big prove it group, which is also true of this next set. So we have the next three guys on our list all play the same position. They're all corners. And corner, like defensive line, is a place where USC has an elite, actually a couple of elite position coaches, right? And a whole lot of talent, almost none of it proven, a couple of exceptions. But the next three guys on our list, Carlos Nicholson, Marcellus Williams, Chasen Johnson. The first two obviously were around last year. Williams got a lot of pub in practice. Chasen Johnson had sort of the strangest path to USC, right? He was at UCF and he decided to come to USC, and then he decided to go somewhere else and he decided to go to UCF, and now he's back at USC with his old position coach from UCF. I won't hold it against him. He had a strange route, but the USC coaches clearly liked the kid. So let's talk about this group of Nicholson and Williams and Chase and Johnson and what we expect for these guys. Mark, you want to go first?
So these guys are going to be just as good as we were just talking about the defensive line. If you want to make a good cornerback great or better, get a pass rush. And that's something USC lacked last year, a lot of. So Marcellus Williams, hopefully he's going to be healthy, ready to go. He might have the inside track. It looked like he was going to be part of the rotation last year until he got dinged up and he had to sit out the season. DeCarlos Nicholson's returning. He's got that length. You hope that he is more comfortable playing in the Cardinal gold than he looked last year. He has, again, that natural ability that you want. He's a cornerback that has arms longer than Eric Gentry. And if you're a cornerback, that's a good thing to have. Again, will he look more comfortable in 2025 than he looked in 2024? So you got him. I think the staff's going to look at him to be part of the rotation. And then you talked about Chasen Johnson and his circuitous route to finally end up at USC. The biggest benefit, the biggest trick he has in his bag, he played last year as a freshman for Central Florida. That's where USC is lacking opening the season. They've got guys who have played, but they don't have guys who have played a lot. So like DeCarlos Nicholson, he has a lot of experience. He didn't play that much for USC last year. I mean, he had the snaps, but he's not the guy you remember playing cornerback. Most of that fell at Jalen Smith Jacoby Covington, that rotation. So can DeCarlo solidify himself? Marcellus Williams, same thing. Are you ready to take that step from a freshman into your second year as a sophomore? Jason Johnson's coming over saying, hey, I might be the best guy of the group just because I have the most playing time experience, at least of the guys we're talking about right now. So these guys will get better. They will jump significantly in our minds as far as productivity if the defensive line helps them out, get some pressure. If a cornerback only has to cover a wide receiver for 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, you're going to have a pretty good success rate.
I could even do that most of the time, 2 seconds. Eric, I'm going to put you on the spot, but you're a grown man. You can deal with that. All three of these guys are going to get snaps. I don't know that we know how many they're going to get, but they're all going to be on the field this year. Which member of this group of three do you expect will make the biggest splash this year?
I think Chasen Johnson. I think that, again, you want me to pick a guy, that's the guy that I'm going to pick. I think it's right when they went after him and brought him in the spring portal after they had seen everybody during the spring. And then it was, yeah, we're going to go get him. I didn't fall in that, oh gosh, they don't like anybody that they have on the roster. I think that the way this staff works is that guy's really good. He makes us better. Let's go get him. And so I think Trevon Reed, right, who saw him up close for a full year, that to me is a pretty significant stamp of approval of, hey, this guy brings something that is good, right? That adds and that we need, and he can go make plays. So I'll go with him. Marcellus Williams it's one of those guys. You can be a good cornerback, but not have that like get your hands on the ball ability. And he has that. And the corners did not do a good enough job of both picking off passes and just getting their hands on enough footballs last year. And so I think he excels there, that's sort of my hesitation to where, boy, if he throws a 5-pick season together, like that's significant as a corner. And I think he could have the ability to do that. But for me, it's the stamp of approval that Chasen Johnson got from this staff to say, hey, we need this guy and he's going to make us better. And that he's played and seemed to do better, like as the season went along, grabbed a starting spot late in the year. I think he's a big addition at corner.
Yeah, Greg, that seems pretty compelling to me that the USC coaches have all these young corners on the roster. It's a pretty deep spot in terms of guys that you think are likely to develop. And they go in and bring another young guy like Chasen Johnson. They clearly see something there that they think is special. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it. But I'm not going to ask you the same question I asked Eric. I'm going to ask you a slightly different one. One, is Marcellus Williams too small to play in a Danton Lynn defense that clearly likes taller corners with longer arms? And number two, what happened with DeCarlos Nicholson last year? He was the starter in the spring game. I think he's a guy that they expected would be a heavy part of the rotation, and he played. But as the year went on, it seemed like they were relying on other guys a lot more than relying on him. What does he need to do in order to become the man this year instead of just another guy who's out there for 15, 20 snaps a game?
Well, it gets down to, potential is unproven talent. All these players have a strength, and these coaches know exactly how good these guys have been up to this point in time. The question is who can take it to when it's on the field. There's a lot of players that don't practice well, but you put them in a game, they play pretty well. I don't think size is a factor, in my opinion, and I'll tell you why. You can be 6'3", 195 pounds, and you can say, boy, he's built like a brick house, but you can't cover anybody. You can't get your hands on the ball. I mean, SC's had some really good corners that weren't all that big, 5'10", 5'11". So I don't get all that sidetracked by somebody's size. I've learned over the years that you're really fortunate if you get a big guy that can run like a little guy. The question is, can they tackle? It's such a difficult position to play. You played it. When you're having to be concerned about run support or play action passes and all that stuff, how well do they adjust to the mental side? To me, the physical side is they must have some ability that they wouldn't be at USC. And the point is I think, as you said, these are good coaches. They're not going to sit there and go, well, I don't really know. They're going to know, and they're going to tell the players, here's what you need to do. The question is, will the players do it? So in terms of which one is the best, in a perfect world, the media could watch practice. And I know people say, don't go there.
We don't live in a perfect world, Greg. Imperfect world. This
That's right. That's right. But in a perfect world, I can tell you that most people that have coached the sport and are pretty good at coaching it, they could go into SC's practice and see things, and it wouldn't take long to figure out who's the guy and who's not the guy. So when we see him, basically, most people, it's just in the game. If a guy couldn't cover somebody in practice, why would they think he could cover somebody in the game? So my feeling is they'll get because of who they play the first couple of games. We'll all get an opportunity to see all these guys in rotation, how they do, because I can guarantee you, and you know this as well as anybody, when it gets to the games that really count, and I would throw Michigan State in there. Michigan State will come, and they may not be one of the higher ranked teams at the moment, but they've got really a good coach, in my opinion, who knows USC, knows Lincoln Riley, knows what they're doing. That's gonna have a big play on it. Just how, in fact, Jonathan, I'll be honest with you, I think the Michigan State is going to be fascinating to me because of Jonathan Smith and what he knows and what he imparts to his players.
Guy's a good football coach. There's no doubt about it. As the self-appointed spokesman for short corners everywhere, I'm with you that I think Marcellus can play and will. Nickel Roby played pretty well at USC, and he was shorter than I am.
Is 5'11" short for cornerback? I mean, that's where they list Mac Marcellus.
Yeah, that's what they list him at. I'm not sure I buy it. Just like I think they listed.
So let's say we bump him by an inch. Is 5'10" short for cornerback?
From just a few years ago. Please help me. I'm getting old.
I'm sorry, I was talking over you.
Give me the name of our Thorpe Award winner from a few years ago. I'm getting old and I can't.
Adoree
Jackson. Adoree Jackson, I think, was also listed at 5'11". There's no way in the world Adoree Jackson is 5'11". Good football player. Look, we'll see what happens with this group. I know this. Danton Lynn is a fantastic coach and a secondary guy. Doug Belk is a fantastic coach and a secondary guy. Trevon Reed, we haven't seen yet, but they wouldn't have hired him if they didn't think he could coach. I trust that group to find some guys who can play back here. And I assume one of these three will have to make a pretty big jump for USC to have the defense we expect them to have. And so we'll see who it is. But a lot to be excited about. Okay, let's close with this, guys. The USC 2026 recruiting class is almost full, which is an amazing thing to say in early July. But they have, other than College, who they want to bring in on the offensive line, and approximately 3 spots that they're holding to see what happens in the fall. Decommits, late bloomers, whatever. You pretty much have a full class. And we talked about the class. Here's what I find interesting is this class obviously is going to play by themselves. That's going to come in with a group of guys from the prior recruiting class and eventually the 2027 class. When Lincoln Riley got to USC, I think everybody understood that the number one thing he needed to do was rebuild the program on the offensive and defensive lines, right? I mean, we knew that. The program was struggling there, didn't recruit very well there, was getting pushed around by just about everybody, especially that last year that when Helton was fired. So I want to read to you the combined recruiting classes last year and this year on the defensive line. Okay. Jakeem Stewart, Floyd Bacard, Cash Jacobson, Gus Cordova, Jaden Ramos, Luke Wayful, Samote Katoanga, Andrew Williams, Jamie Winfield, Tom Tapui, Braden Jones, Jake Johnson, Malik Brooks. Guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you put that group? Eric McKinney?
That's a 10. That's a 10. That hits every position. It hits guys who are going to be impact freshmen. It hits guys who you need in the program for 4 years before they really get going. It hits inside guys. It hits outside guys. It basically, in I think 3 years, becomes 2/3 years becomes a 3 deep across the line. Like, you look at, like, okay, how does this class fit, right? Here's my 11 on defense from this class with starters. But in these two classes, you're not just looking at 4 starters, you're looking at your entire thing. And, I talked about with the defensive line and injuries and all that, all these guys aren't on the roster in 3 or 4 years. That's just that's the reality. I'm not going to pick and choose who's going to be here, who's not going to be here. It just you don't keep that much of a class together anymore. I don't know who else. I don't know who else you look at in the last 2 years and go, oh, they should have gotten that guy. There's some choices you can make, right? Could they have this guy instead of this guy, whatever? But there's no holes when you look back at other classes, and it's just like, man, they really missed on getting this position or getting this guy or hitting this region or whatever. That's a good group. That's a good group.
Yeah, Greg, look, this is a group that has a lot of very highly regarded guys, and it's also a group that you figure you probably have 4, 5, 6 former NFL, or future NFL players on this group. Here's what I don't know that we see. I don't know if we have that dominant speed rusher off the edge in this group. I think USC may have had that guy before he got new representation and cut a deal somewhere else. But I don't see that elite speed rusher. Although I see some guys who probably can bring pressure from the outside. Is that something to worry about? Is that a hole in this group that the USC fans should be concerned they're going to have to fill in the transfer portal or otherwise do without?
Well, I think the transfer portal is being showcased for what it really is. It's a limited amount of players for the schools that really matter, that are going for the national championship or the conference championship, that need to put in a particular player. But overall, in my opinion, it's still about who you recruit out of high school and how you develop them. And in my opinion, that USC, the big difference we see in this recruiting class is the notoriety of these players. And I don't think these players from this class that we're all saying is the great future of USC, and probably the class after that, they're looking at USC, not what they're doing today, is what happens when they all get together, when they come to SC and they play, because they believe they're going to turn it around. And we certainly all hope that they are able to do that. They may be able to do that. But, when you look at the play, ask yourself this question. What players did SC lose in Southern California that have made a difference in other programs? The one that gets to me was Graham from Servite, who ends up going to Michigan and ends up being an All-American, high draft pick. And it's who they lost. I don't think there's anybody, and that was the importance of Tapui, Tom coming to USC out of Mater Dei, was that he is going to be at least through the season somebody that everyone's going to hear about over and over. Same with a couple other guys out of the Trinity League. And they, at least on paper, we know games are not played on paper, but on paper, when you're looking to project something, you'd say this group is much better in their ability, in their production, and I'm excited about that. I cannot understate how important attitude is and playing to your potential, and don't be unproven talent, be proven talent. And I think that these players have a chance to be proven talent when they get their opportunity. It's a question of how patient is everybody else, going to deal with it. And as I said before last week, and I think some other weeks, these players are just going into that we're talking about a lot of them in the future. They're just going into their senior year in high school. Okay. When will they really make a big effect at USC? Some of them will make an effect at some level when they're freshmen, but most of them will be after that. And, Lincoln Riley, I think, knows that. But I tell you what, like everybody else, I think this coaching staff's really outstanding. I really do. Defensively, I've got a lot of confidence in him. Offensively, you can say, well, look at Lincoln Riley's record, and I'll say, yeah, it's pretty good. There's no question about it. But one of the problems that SC has for defense, in my opinion, is in what I have been able to see, which isn't very much, to be honest, is when they have to be in practice, what type of offenses do they get to see? How much is a run game, like a Michigan run game or Ohio State run game? Are they prepared for those teams? And that's something that, they may not be getting in practice. Now they may in the future as they get better offensive linemen, but they need that. They need to be able to simulate a lot of stuff in practice, and that's going to be a real challenge.
This was Pete Carroll's argument, right? I mean, he talked about the importance of having an offense that has a strong power running game, because if you don't, your defense doesn't see it. They don't see it until Saturday, and then it's too late. I think we're going to hit some of these other position groups in other weeks. There is one I want to talk about right now. Mark, I'm looking at you because I just read a bunch of names on the defensive line, a lot of good names. I could read a bunch of names in the defensive backfield, a lot of good names. I will read those later. Same is true to a number of other positions. But a linebacker, you have two combined classes with five total guys. You've got Talanoa Ely, who we talked about how important he was, and primarily for this reason. That is a guy that they have to have production out of. You have Taylor Johnson and AJ Tuatele, who are guys who were not big time recruits, but were very productive in high school. So you think they can play. Matai Tagawai, who is probably a linebacker. Maybe he's an Eric Gentry type linebacker. Maybe he's a safety. He's a football player, but he probably weighs less than I do. That's not great for him or for me. And Sean Scott from Mater Dei, who I think it's not clear whether he's an edge or a linebacker, and I don't know what to expect. That's not enough at that position group, is it, Mark? New recruiting classes?
Well, based on Dantlin's scheme, it's going to be enough. I mean, he typically runs a two linebacker set. None of these guys that you just mentioned, Matai, AJ, Talanoa, Taylor, or Sean Scott, they're not going to. I would, let me put it this way. I'd be shocked if any one of those guys plays a significant role next year, because that's what we're really talking about. This year, we're talking about Eric Gentry, Desmond Stevens, and then you got Jaden Walker as another name that's kind of lurking in the background. So you're
and the Penn State transfer.
And the Penn State transfer, Tamir Robinson, absolutely. So your question was, is this enough? Based on how many linebackers they like to roll out there, I would say yes. Now, out of that group, you just need you need at least two of them to take that step to be the guys out of that group. I think everybody's focusing on Talanoa being the guy. Taylor Johnson's got a really nice story. And then, USC fought tooth and nail. They wanted to get Matai and AJ, Sean Scott as well. Sean Scott's at tweener. Is he a linebacker? Is he a defensive lineman? So maybe you can make the argument that they need at least one more linebacker. But again, you're only running two of them out there, when USC lines up on defense anyways. So unless you have, a big number 55, Chris Claiborne type of guy roaming around out there somewhere that you want, USC's looking for that. They don't have any big thumpers in that linebacker group. So that's, I guess, what you're looking for. Can Talanoa grow into it? He's got the size, absolutely. He has the frame to hold 230, 240, 250 pounds. Will he get that big? But right now, the numbers are fine because just of the scheme that they run.
Eric, I'm going to stir the pot and cause trouble. Mark is wrong, isn't he? That's not enough guys, and it's not enough high-level guys, is it? I mean, when you go through the list that we have...
High-level guys is different than having enough guys. That's a different goalpost.
It's Eric's turn. I'm trying to cause problems for you, so just pipe down for a second and let Eric criticize you. Look, you have a lot of good players in almost all these position groups, and linebacker has some good players. There's some good players in what I just read, but you have a lot more projects than you'd want. You have a lot of guys who don't yet have the size that you want, and then you, I think, have one elite recruit in two classes. That doesn't cut it, does it, Eric? Doesn't USC end up going out to the transfer portal and trying to pull in linebackers like they have for the last few years because of that failure?
I think you need 3 a year. And I know that typically you're in nickel and typically you have 2. We saw against Minnesota, Dentlin wants to play 3. Against Michigan, same thing, right? You had 3 out there. He wants to play 3 against a team that's going to run the ball. And so you need 3 high-level starters. I think at least 2 behind them that can go in. Like I think you need 5. I think you need 5 guys that you really, really trust every year to play linebacker for you, to just get you through a regular season. And so 2 a year with one a project, again, you're missing on, I don't know, 40%, 35% of anyone at any position. You'd better, if it's 5 over 2 years, you'd better be right a lot more than you're wrong, especially when there's some either physical or athletic projects in there. So yeah, I think that's the Tamir Robinson, right? He's young, he's got a couple years left, and so you throw him in, and then it brings your numbers up. But I think 3 a year and some guarantees in there, as much as you can get a guarantee, right, in high school recruiting. For me, that's because you look at those teams last year, and defensive line is so important and sets the tone so much. Those playoff teams, they had some linebackers on them. Like they had linebackers that could play against the run, that could bother the quarterback. You got to have really good linebacker play. And yeah, I would like to see if there was a 6 name that was a Talanoa Ely equivalent in that group. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Matt Riordan. Like if you could have gotten Madden Faremo. If he's in that group, right? If you're saying his name included in that last year,
or the Florida kid last year that he committed, who was I think a spectacular athlete. That guy's a future first or second round draft choice just based on athleticism. Yeah, you had a guy like that. Griffin, if he's on the list, makes me feel better too. Although I think maybe he's that speed edge rusher that I talked about before. But that's the one spot where I think there's some really good players there, and I'm glad they have those guys. It's the one spot I look at and say, yeah, I don't know that we killed it there. We're going to have to plug some holes. That's my guess. But then again, USC's not paying me anything to offer that opinion. In fact, nobody's paying me anything off of that opinion. So it makes perfect sense that I would be wrong. All right, guys, I think we're going to save. I want to talk about defensive back and O-line, but I think we'll save it till next week. I'm really excited about both those groups. So, not much expected this week in recruiting. You never know, but not much expected this week. We are getting closer and closer to fall camp, and then we can talk about whatever we can see during fall camp. But this is sort of a dead time of the year, and so Eric, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Why is it that people should take that $1 for a week special and sign up for WeAreSC.com right now? Because it feels like there's not a ton going on. Is there something on the message boards or on that site people should care about?
Always. So there's a bunch of new subscribers that came over. There was the big On3 Rivals merger. So there's a bunch of new voices, especially in recruiting right now, with some of the big Rivals names coming over. It's always interesting to kind of see behind the curtain a little bit, right? Adam Gorney is coming over, who's done the West Coast recruiting for a long time. Sam Spiegelman is back as a national recruiting guy. So new voices, new thoughts, and there's us. There's always us.
There is us. I don't know if that's a selling point, Eric, and but if people like us,
of course it is. Of course it is.
If people like us, they can find us there. Greg, I'm going to give you the final word today, just because it feels like the right thing to do. Go ahead.
What do you want me to say?
I don't know. Whatever you want to say. I feel like you're the experienced.
Okay.
You're the experienced guy in this group. You're going to have some wisdom to share. Go ahead.
What you're basically saying is, since you know my birthday's coming up, and I'm playing in the 70 club now for a while, I have something to say, whether it's legitimate or not.
That's exactly.
I'll just say this. I'll just say this. You know, it's very difficult to stay focused in some ways in the off season, especially as the off season turned out in spring ball, no spring game. I'm not saying that was wrong. I'm just saying it changed a little bit of the edge, the anticipation. But here we are now into July, and it seems almost like, oh my, it's really almost here. Okay. And I just go, now they'll open up, since they play in late August. We're going to see practice here at the end of July or somewhere in that frame, give or take. And it's hard to believe that we're almost there. And it's going to be interesting. It's not like the buildup for LSU. It's going to start the season where everybody's on pins and needles and let's see what happens. But it is this hope that what we're seeing with things that we have talked about, defensive line, the secondary, the idea that it looks like they're making some progress. But really, when you look at what the record has been the last 2 years, they have to make progress. Or as I read in one copy, people are going to start to get antsy about what's going on. So this is a big year, and I'm excited that it's going to start. I don't anticipate there's going to be a lot of changes for the media to see practices and those things. I wish it would, but I don't suspect it's going to happen. But what we hope that does happen, regardless of that, is that when we watch the team play, I almost get the impression that since we're just about ready to open practice here rather soon, that it's almost like with those first 3 games, it's like, can we just get them out of the way? Can we start playing even Michigan State? For me, it's like, okay, let's start playing the teams that are going to show what we're all about, and I'm excited about that.
You know what, Greg? I knew you'd have something to say, and I appreciate it. Although you're behind the times, we're not open with LSU because we're undefeated against the SEC last year. There's really nothing left to challenge us when it comes to that conference. So
no question.
We're moving on to bigger and better things. Okay, well, we're getting close. It's going to be a very interesting season. I think a comeback season, but we'll know more in a few months. All right, sign up. Go talk to us on WeAreSC.com. Go join the message board. Go read the articles. This is the best time. It's the best time to get acclimated before the season starts. All right, guys, that's it. No more wisdom to share. We'll see you next week at this time. Until then, fight on, everybody.